As you might already be guessing, there are a lot of parts and pieces to doing a confidence interval from start to finish. So in order to help you remember all of those things and include everything that's needed, I've created a mnemonic called the panic method. So one word of warning, if you Google panic method, you're probably not going to find anything. But if you do Google something like confidence interval steps, you should see these same ideas listed. So the reason I use a mnemonic is it just makes it easier for students to grasp those ideas and remember them more easily. Okay, so the P in panic stands for the parameter statement. You're going to identify what you're being asked to do, such as a 95% CI, and CI stands for confidence interval, for the mean height of students. So this doesn't have to be a complete sentence. It doesn't have to be pretty. You can shortcut words. It's just a little note to help you remember exactly what you're doing here. A in panic stands for the assumptions. So you need to check the assumptions and conditions. And specifically, you're looking that it has a random sample, that it's either normally distributed or large enough. And that large enough is that central limit theorem. And then you need to note whether you have the population standard deviation or not and what its value is. The N in panic is just the name of what you're doing. The one means Z interval. And the reason I have people write that down is there are more than one type of intervals. And so this helps me if it looks like you're lost, it tells me what you were thinking you were supposed to be doing here. So I have a better idea of how to help you get back on track. The I in panic stands for the interval, and you're going to find the endpoints for the range of values. So that was the skill we just looked at in the previous video. And you can either use the formula or Excel. Either one is totally fine with me. And then part C we've also already looked at, and that's to interpret the confidence interval and the confidence level in context. So we are 95% confident that the true mean height of students at Western is between 62 and 69 inches, for example. All right, so that's the method that's going to guide you through the steps for each of the confidence intervals. And I want to take one more look at this assumptions and conditions before we do a confidence interval from start to finish. So when you list these out, I usually write SRS. And then if it's stated in the problem, I put a check mark. If it's not stated in the problem, I put a star. So this should be really familiar from the experiments in chapter 9 where we were noting that as well. Then I write normal and large. If the problem states that this is a normally distributed population or that you can assume that, I just circle the word normal and I put a star and put stated. If the sample size is greater than 30, I'll put N equals and I'll list that sample size and I'll circle the word large. So this would be where you would be using the central limit theorem. And then if your sample size is less than 30 and you have the data set, then you should make a normal probability plot. Okay, and so then you would want to mark that you made the MPP and whether it was straight enough or maybe slightly bumpy and circle the word normal. If your sample size is less than 30 and you have no data set and no reason to assume that data is normally distributed, you're just going to put a star and write unknown next to it. So you're not going to circle anything at all. Okay, and then the population standard deviation, that has to be given to you in the problem. It's not something you're going to calculate. And all you need to do is write down POP for population, put sigma, and then put the value down. All right, so come back in the next video and we'll do an example of working this through from start to finish.